So before the battery dies or anything that goes on, I'll try to go through these as fast as I can. Here I have a bunch of drama movies right here. So here this is science fiction really. So we have The Day the Earth Stood Still. Then next we have To Kill a Mockingbird, which is one that we saw in our English class, and I really like this film. Then we have Citizen Kane. Have not watched it, but I'm trying to. Same thing goes for these other films like Seven Samurai and the Godfather trilogy right here. And then a film that I really like, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, starring Jack Nicholson. And then a film that I saw right here that we talked about in film class, one that I thought was okay, Birdman with Michael Keaton. So now that we got those out of the way, let's talk about the other films, which right here, start off with, is The Princess Bride. This is the 20th anniversary edition, which has a lot more special features than the 30th anniversary edition, or whatever it's called. So the really cool thing about this Princess Bride DVD is that, yeah, it does that. It blew my mind when I was a kid. So yeah, I really like this. So anyway, moving on. Here we have The Wizard, starring Fred Savage. The only reason why I got this movie is just because it's about video games and all that stuff. And if you've seen The Angry Video Game Nerd and know about this, then, well, now you know. This is the only reason why I got this movie, was just because of the whole video game type of craze back then. So that's the only reason why I kind of enjoy this movie. And then next we have another one that I grew up watching as a kid, was The Adventures of Shark Boy and Lava Girl. And yes, they still include the 3D glasses. This was one I actually found at like an antique store, and I was really happy and surprised that they still had their original 3D glasses in it. So that's pretty cool. Next we have is another really cool film, which is James Cameron's Avatar. Not a whole lot to say about it other than it was pretty good. And then here we have another really good film. This is Spinal Tap. This is one of the mockumentary comedies, which is really fantastic. If you've not seen it, I recommend you watch it. It's pretty good. Then we have another real documentary, which is Super Size Me. This is one that we watched in school in our, I want to say our social studies class, and I thought it was pretty good. Again, this was like, in the early 2000s, but it dates it, but it was pretty okay. And next we have another Kurt Russell movie, Overboard, the original Overboard. Not a whole lot else to say about it other than it has its moments. Next we have the Super Mario Brothers movie. I remember getting this as a kid. I do not like that movie. So moving on. Next we have Ridley Scott's Legend, starring Tom Cruise. I think I've only seen this film once, and this is also the director's cut, I believe. And from what I remember seeing it years ago, this was pretty cool. And then, speaking of which, we have one of the first Jim Henson movies that I really loved. Definitely one of the films that I need to watch a lot more often, but there's another one that I watched a lot more often as a kid. I'll get into that in a second, is the Dark Crystal Collector's Edition. The one thing that makes this special edition really cool is because it has this, its own thing of the movie right here, like a little film right there. It's really, really cool. It's a bit hard to see because of the camera, but it's like really, really amazing. And then, of course, it has a whole bunch of like production notes, which are pretty interesting to look through. Not a whole lot to say about it, but of course it even includes the DVD. So it's really cool. It really is. It's really, really cool. Next, of course, which the one I talked about a little bit ago, was Labyrinth. This was one I grew up as a kid. Love it. Still love it to this day. I even like the whole behind-the-scenes footage watching that as a kid. I don't know why, but I did. Next we have another action movie which I really, really like, is The Warriors. If you haven't seen The Warriors, go ahead and watch it. However, this is the original cut of the film, rather than the director's cut. The director's cut is pretty okay, but I'm that kind of person who prefers the original version, really. So that's all I have to say about that. Okay, sorry if it looks different. The battery had a charge, so anyway, moving on. Next we have Detroit Rock City. This is a pretty interesting comedy. It's basically about these kids who want to go to a Kiss concert and everything gets in their way. It's not the greatest, but it's pretty decent. So now that we're past all that, now we're going to get into the territory of double feature DVDs and triple features and 4 film collections, 5 film, and all that good stuff. So first up, we have Crocodile Dundee 1 and 2. I'm just going to go ahead and go down the line just to speed things up, just for your guys' sake. So next we have Short Circuit and Short Circuit 2. First one is pretty good. Second one, for me, not too much, sadly. Next we have the two Homeward Bound movies. Loved the first one, loved it. I think I loved it as a kid. As for the second one, not exactly the same for me. And then next we have Bill and Ted's Excellent Double Feature. Of course, these are only the first two Bill and Ted films, where it has Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure and Bogus Journey. Bogus Journey is not really too great, sadly. But, of course, after that is Bill and Ted Face the Music. This movie was okay, I guess, but nothing too special even when it came out, sadly. Of course, it came out at a bad year, but, you know, what can you do? And then next we have a really good double feature here, Wayne's World and Wayne's World 2. These DVD menus are really cool because like they have that old 90s style TV guide that you can look through. It's really cool. They even have previews of other Paramount stuff, which makes it really cool. And then next we have Airplane and Airplane 2. I have not seen Airplane 2 yet, but I have seen the first one, obviously, and it's pretty cool. Pretty funny, too. And then next we have a kind of an unfortunate double feature, but, you know, whatever. Here we have the first Caddyshack and Caddyshack 2. First Caddyshack, obviously really good, but as for the second Caddyshack, not too great, but it has some funny moments, but not really too grand. Next after that we have Coming to America and Trading Places. These are two really good Eddie Murphy movies. Of course, I would recommend watching Trading Places first and then Coming to America, because there's kind of a little bit of a tie-in with similar characters that kind of pop in, but it'll make sense if, you know, you're a nerd. But anyway, these are really good ones. They're really good comedies, so I recommend these. And then speaking of Eddie Murphy, there's more on the way. Here we have the Beverly Hills Cop trilogy. I've seen the first two, and I couldn't exactly sit through the third one too well, but I think they're decent enough. And the theme song can also get stuck in your head after watching it for a little while. And then we have the Nutty Professor collection of Nutty Professor 1 and 2. Obviously, I think the first Nutty Professor is a decent enough comedy. Second one is okay, has its moments, but it's a pretty good collection. And then, of course, even though it's not a double feature, I just still have it in the realm of Eddie Murphy movies, is Daddy Daycare. This is a movie I grew up with as a kid and watched it a lot. One of the reasons, of course, why I liked this one in particular was mainly because of the games. I mean, you know, when you're a kid and you didn't really have any video games, you just go on the DVD bonus features and look for kids games, and that was all you did. I mean, come on, lots of kids did that. So then next we have Charlie's Angels. These are pretty good. Well, they're not exactly good. They're more like eye candy movies, but the first one's pretty good. Second one has its moments, and I think they're pretty okay. And then next we have the Nanny McPhee collection. Next we have the Nanny McPhee collection here. The first one I think was pretty good enough. As for the second one, I don't remember a whole lot about it, really. That's probably why it's a bit forgettable for me, sadly. And then here, I couldn't exactly find, at the time, you know, just a copy of the first movie here, but I have a double feature of The Neverending Story and Neverending Story 2. I almost wish that they had like some sort of triple feature thing with The Neverending Story 3, but that has never happened, and I don't know if it ever will happen, because honestly, Neverending Story 2 really sucks, and the third one, not as good. But the first one will always like be an absolute classic. They just decided to throw Neverending Story 2 in there just because, well, we don't know how else to give it away. And then here we have Grumpy Old Men and Grumpier Old Men. I really liked the first Grumpy Old Men. It was pretty decent. And as for the second one, it was okay. Had its moments, but some things were kind of similar, though. And then here we have the Dennis the Menace double feature. There's like another Dennis the Menace movie, which I think is Dennis the Menace's Christmas or something like that, and I want to say that there's one more out there, but these are the only ones that I feel like I care about, mainly because the first one was directed by John Hughes, who's known for lots of good comedies, and it has Walter Matthau as Mr. Wilson, which is pretty cool. And as for the second one, I think I remember seeing this as a kid, but it also has Don Rickles as Mr. Wilson this time. Not as fitting as the comics, but I just remember this, you know, as a kid, and I think Betty White's was also in the sequel as well. But anyway, and then next we have another interesting duo of Loaded Weapon 1, which is obviously a spoof parody, kind of like a Zucker movie of Lethal Weapon, and Senior Trip is just I guess a bonus. Not really that good of a comedy, honestly. So now we're getting into the Jim Carrey territory of this. So of course for this we have The Mask and Son of the Mask. Not a fan of the Son of the Mask. Obviously, really love The Mask, but Son of the Mask is just no, just no. And then next we have a really cool collection right here where it has the first 2 Ace Ventura movies and then The Cable Guy. Obviously, the Ace Ventura movies are really funny, especially the first one, and The Cable Guy, I thought was okay. Lots of people don't like The Cable Guy, but I thought it was just okay, you know. And the other thing is that, the little thing that when my dad bought the VHS of, I believe, the first Ace Ventura, it included this little thing, which is a little card that came with it, so I included it in there. It's not in the greatest shape, obviously, but, you know, still want to preserve it as much as I can, you know. And then, of course, just as a little bonus thing, I don't remember what made me think of getting this, is just a little bonus disc of like 3 episodes of the Ace Ventura animated series. And from what I'm aware of, I don't think there's even a complete series of this on DVD anywhere. I mean, heck, there's not even a complete series of The Mask, the animated series. There's just 1 season or 1 volume on DVD, and that's about it. Kind of like Police Academy, where it has just 1 volume, and that's it so far. Maybe it'll never happen, I don't know. But anyway, next we have another double feature with Dumb and Dumber and Dumb and Dumber-er. I do like the first Dumb and Dumber. As for this prequel, absolutely do not recommend. And then there, of course, there's Dumb and Dumber 2. It was fine, I guess, but I just had mixed opinions on it, really, especially when, you know, Jim Carrey and Jeff Daniels came back after like how many years since the first one. And then of course there's, I want to say this is a bootleg, but it seems to be in pretty, you know, it looks pretty decent enough, of the Dumb and Dumber animated series, but I haven't even watched it, honestly. And then of course we have one of my favorite Jim Carrey comedies, Liar Liar, a really good comedy. It's really, really good. I highly recommend it. And then we move on to another favorite of mine in the Jim Carrey movies is The Truman Show, a really, really good movie. This is more of a drama rather than having it be a comedy, but it's still a movie that I recommend very, very much. And then we have the Almighty collection that has Bruce Almighty and Evan Almighty. I liked Bruce Almighty, but as for Evan Almighty, it's kind of stale. And then, moving away from the Jim Carrey category, we have Teen Wolf and Teen Wolf 2. I do not care for seeing the second Teen Wolf at all or ever, and to be honest, this was the only way I could ever get the first Teen Wolf. I couldn't find just Teen Wolf. I couldn't find it, you know, only the first movie, anywhere on DVD, anywhere at all. I could only get the one that has 1 and 2. There's no option that I'm aware of or anything that I could find at all to find just the first one. It had to have the second Teen Wolf too. But whatever. Fine. Whatever. As long as I get the first Teen Wolf, that's fine. And the funny thing is... no. And then next we're moving into Tom Hanks territory again, where we have Big and the Man with One Red Shoe. Big is a really good movie, and Man with One Red Shoe is a pretty decent comedy. And then next we have one that I just got recently, Splash. This was actually a pretty good... I guess you would call it a romantic comedy. It's more of a comedy, really, but I thought it was actually pretty good. And then next we have another one of my favorites that was, you know, my recent favorite not that long ago was Castaway. Of course, this was from Robert Zemeckis, who is the writer of Back to the Future, and it definitely shows that this is a really good film. This is amazing. I just can't believe I haven't seen it after, like, you know, so long. And then finally we have a interesting double feature right here where it has The Curious Case of Benjamin Button and Forrest Gump. Absolutely love Forrest Gump. And as for Benjamin Button, it's a pretty interesting film. It's just another one of those drama films that's like, you know, you would have to watch it maybe a couple times in order to like it or anything like that, but this was definitely one I think I liked. So now we're moving into the triple feature territory right here. So here we have another Tom Hanks movie at the top, Bachelor Party, really funny and a bit raunchy of a film, but it's still good. And then we have Back to School with Rodney Dangerfield, pretty decent comedy. And then another one of my favorite comedies that I don't think too many people know about is Weekend at Bernie's. And then, of course, with that happening, there was a sequel, Weekend at Bernie's 2. Terrible, but, I mean, if you're a fan of Weekend at Bernie's, then go ahead and get this. And then next we have a Patrick Swayze collection where it has Red Dawn, Roadhouse, and Youngblood. Red Dawn's a pretty good film. Roadhouse is amazing. Youngblood is kind of a mixed bag, really. It's mainly, it doesn't even like star Patrick Swayze. He's just kind of there to the side as a character. It mainly has just Rob Lowe as the star, but whatever. And next we have an interesting movie collection right here. We have Animal House, Dazed and Confused, and Fast Times at Ridgemont High. Animal House is amazing. I have not sit all the way through Dazed and Confused, and Fast Times at Ridgemont High, it's pretty good. And then here we have an interesting collection right here. We have the Naked Gun movie trilogy and Police Squad. Of course, with Police Squad, it came out first because it was a TV show. It didn't run for too long, but it has, I believe, 6 episodes in the series, and then, of course, the Naked Gun trilogy. So it's pretty cool. The Naked Gun movies themselves are, like, really hilarious. I don't think I've sat through all the episodes of Police Squad like I should. I really should, but maybe sometime. So next we have another triple feature, and honestly, I'm actually quite glad I got this because when Norm Macdonald passed away, this DVD is like up in price now, and it's like really rare. So I'm glad I got it like a couple of years ago when I had the chance. So here we have Biodome, which I do not care for, Dirty Work, and UHF. That's Weird Al Yankovic's movie. Dirty Work is pretty funny, and UHF is like really good. It's really, really funny, and definitely that Weird Al type of movie. And then here we have an interesting triple feature. Kind of connects with like 2 different actors in like 2 different movies or whatever. Anyway, so here we have the original Jumanji with Robin Williams, RV, and then Zathura. Zathura is really good. RV is a decent enough comedy, and it's been a long time since I've seen the first Jumanji, but I almost feel like I should try to watch it again. And then next we have 3 other movies that I grew up watching as a kid. The 3 Stuart Little movies. I think I watched Stuart Little 2 more than I watched the first one. And as for the third one, I didn't exactly like it too much, mainly because it was just animated. I only care for the games that were on the DVD, and that's about it. So yeah. And then next we have a great Mel Gibson comedy right here, Blazing Saddles. Nothing too much to say about this, it's just a really good comedy. And then we have another Mel Brooks movie where it has History of the World Part 1. This was one I was given as a gift, and honestly, I didn't, going into this, watching it first time, I didn't expect much from it, but it's actually pretty decent enough as a funny comedy. And then as for more Mel Brooks movies, here we have a really good triple feature that we have right here. And I think when I got this in the mail, there was like a sticker that said it was from Cracker Barrel, which I never knew Cracker Barrels sold DVDs. I thought they just sold food and tiny candy and knickknacks, but they sell lots of weird stuff. But anyway, here we have Spaceballs, Young Frankenstein, and Robin Hood Men in Tights. Love Spaceballs, love Young Frankenstein, Men in Tights is decent. And then, of course, there was a Spaceballs Totally Warped Animated Adventures. I've not gotten too far into it at all, and we'll see. And then here we have an interesting 3-film collection right here, where it has the original Wizard of Oz, Gone with the Wind, and Casablanca. Obviously, I grew up with Wizard of Oz, loved it as a kid, and I still love it. I still need to see these 2 movies. Maybe sometime I will. It's just another one of those like classic drama movies that I haven't really seen yet, so eventually I will. And then here we have, again, this is more of a kind of a girly type of thing, but I just figured why not. Mainly I grew up with only one of these movies, which is Matilda. Love this movie. My mother and my sister really love this movie, so we grew up loving this, and yeah. As for Madeline, not my kind of thing. And Annie, I think it's fine. I'm not really much of a musical type of person, but I think the casting was pretty interesting because it has Carol Burnett and Tim Curry in it, so it's like, how can you go wrong with that? And next we have a really cool John Hughes collection where it has The Breakfast Club, 16 Candles, and Weird Science. Again, my whole gripe about this is just the fact that 16 Candles is only PG, and if any common viewer had never seen 16 Candles, seeing that it's PG and they have lots of innuendos and big swear words and even nudity in the first 10 minutes of the film, they'd be like, yeah, this should not be PG. I mean, having Weird Science and Breakfast Club being PG-13 and then R-rated makes sense, but 16 Candles being PG, I just don't think so. I kind of feel like they need to re-rate just to keep themselves safe. But anyway, here we have a Steve Martin Wild and Crazy Comedy Collection where it has Dead Men Don't Wear Plaid, The Jerk, which is really funny, and The Lonely Guy, which I have not seen, and I don't know if I ever plan on watching it. And then here we have a 5-movie John Hughes collection. Only 2 movies I care about, but the rest I could not really care about. So here, for this, we have Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, which is a really great movie with Steve Martin and John Candy. And then we have Ferris Bueller's Day Off, which is really great. And then there's 3 other movies, which I think they're just like rom-coms, or mainly just romantic movies, or whatever the heck. Where it's She's Having My Baby, Pretty in Pink, and Some Kind of Wonderful. don't really care for those ones. I just only care for the first two, honestly. And then we have a John Candy 3-movie collection of Uncle Buck, Great Outdoors, and Going Berserk. I love Uncle Buck. Great Outdoors was so-so, and Going Berserk, I have not seen it. And here we have a Home Alone triple feature collection. Originally I had the first 4 movies, but I decided to just get rid of that one. I think I sold it, and then I decided to get this one instead just because it's the first 3. I didn't want it because the 4th one is so bad. I just wanted the first 2 and the 3rd one just because, well, it's still John Hughes' involvement in it, so, you know. And then here we have the Men in Black trilogy. I actually think I watched these not that long ago, I think a couple months ago, and looking back at them, they're pretty good. And then here we have a really good collection I like right here. Ted vs. Flash Gordon, where it basically has the first 2 Ted movies and Flash Gordon as a bonus, so that's pretty cool. And then next, speaking of Ted, we have A Million Ways to Die in the West. This is a really funny, goofy comedy that Seth MacFarlane, the guy who did Family Guy, really did. Honestly, it's a pretty decent enough film. And then next we have a really cool, I guess you would say Monty Python collection, where it has Monty Python and the Holy Grail, and now for something completely different, and then basically the same team who did Monty Python, even though it's not really Monty Python related, but it's The Adventures of Baron Munchausen. These are all really good comedy films. Holy Grail is definitely a masterpiece. Baron Munchausen is like a fantasy adventure seen to be believed, and something completely different is basically a bunch of different other repeated sketch comedies from Monty Python and Monty Python's Flying Circus that's basically made into like a film, basically. So it's pretty good. The only difference with this is that, again, I kind of made my own custom type of thing where I used a thin case and got a special edition 2-disc for the thin case and actually got the 2 discs in there. Normally the regular releases don't have the second disc. I just felt the need to have the second disc for this collection. I do that a lot with lots of different DVDs. And then we have the Porky's Ultimate Collection. Porky's is another one of those like really raunchy, naughty adult comedies that not too many people know about. The first one is definitely the best out of all of them. Porky's 2 has its moments, but as for the third one called Porky's Revenge, not too great, sadly. And then we have the 4-movie Vegas Vacation. I refuse to get the Vegas Vacation that has the 5th one, like the recent one that came out, because my dad and I saw that in theaters. Hated it. Absolutely hated it. It did not have any of the similar charm that the original one did. Mainly, I believe that John Hughes had all of his involvement in these films. So, aside from that, basically we got, of course, National Lampoon's Vacation, European Vacation, Christmas Vacation, and Vegas Vacation. Simple enough. And then we have kind of an interesting 4-movie collection where it has the first 3 Austin Powers movies, and then as a bonus, Spies Like Us with Chevy Chase and Dan Aykroyd. Love the Austin Powers movies, and Spies Like Us is a pretty decent comedy as well. And then here we have another 4-movie collection where I only care for 3 movies and don't really care for the other one. It'll be obvious. But here we have Space Jam, Looney Tunes Back in Action, Osmosis Jones, and then this movie called Funky Monkey. Obviously, care about the Looney Tunes movies. I grew up with Space Jam. Back in Action's Osmosis Jones is interesting enough. It's more of a cult movie, really, but I think it's okay enough. And as for Funky Monkey, I just don't even remember. I remember watching it, but I don't remember even watching it, if that makes any sense. So then over here we have a moving more towards the end, so we're getting close. So here we have a 4-disc collection of Wallace and Gromit. This was another one of the things that I grew up as a kid, where it has 4 of their own, I guess you would say, short films, I guess you would call it. So it's really cool to have these. And then around the same production team, here we have like a triple feature of different DreamWorks movies right here, where we have Flushed Away, Chicken Run, which I believe they're also coming out with a sequel? Just hard for me to believe. And then, of course, the Wallace and Gromit movie, like an actual full-length movie, The Curse of the Were-Rabbit. And then, of course, just as a little bonus, I decided to even add Shaun the Sheep, the movie, until they come out with like the entire series, rather than having it combined into 2 seasons and DVDs, and maybe I'll get that sometime soon. Anyway, moving on. And then here we have the Revenge of the Nerds Atomic Wedgie Collection. The one thing that I find interesting about these is that the first 2 movies, I think, were released in theaters, and as for 3 and 4, I believe that they were only TV movies, and you can definitely tell, even with the quality, that they were definitely TV movies. Loved the first one. Second one, I think, is okay, but as for 3 and 4, I can't even really sit through them because they're a bit tedious to watch, honestly. And then here we have a Shrek Ultimate Collection DVD. I mean, how can I not get this? It basically has like 6 movies, and then like 10 bonus shorts, and then like 5 TV episodes, plus the musical. Obviously, you know, first 4 Shrek movies, Puss in Boots, because, you know, it's part of the same universe, I guess, Shrek the Musical, and like all the other stuff I said. Interesting to have the musical in there, but okay. And then here we have the Hobbit trilogy and Lord of the Rings trilogy. I feel like this is definitely one of those things that I couldn't really be a nerd without. I believe that I saw only the first and third Hobbit movies in theaters, and I believe that I even remember sitting down watching the Lord of the Rings trilogy. It's kind of hard to watch them, especially the fact that the third Lord of the Rings is 4 hours long, but I still think it's a pretty decent enough collection to have, really. And then we have the Police Academy movies right here, where it has all, I believe, 7 of the Police Academy movies. And as I mentioned before, there is an animated series as well. I do not have that in my collection yet, but maybe sometime in the near future. I'm not in a hurry to get it, but it exists, so now I know it's out there. I did also have the opportunity to have one of the actors who was in all the movies, Michael Winslow, the guy who does all the sound effects and all that, had the opportunity for him to autograph it, but I mistakenly did not. My own fault, but that's okay. And then finally, to the last part that we got is the Harry Potter 8-film collection. Sadly, I am not that much of a Harry Potter person. I only grew up watching the first 2, mainly the second one. And then later I finally got to watch the first one, and it was pretty good. As for the rest of them, they're just more for people who are fans of Harry Potter, like who grew up reading the books, really. It was hard for me to sit through most of them because it was all dark and stuff like that. I really liked the second one because I grew up with that. It's the first one I ever watched. The first one's pretty good. Third one is okay, but the rest of them just felt the same and just bland. Not for me, really. So that pretty much covers the entire shelf right here. So now I'll just move on to the horror shelf in a little bit, and hopefully my battery will not keep dying and the camera won't stop messing with me, you know. So now we're moving on to the horror shelf right here. So first, I'm going to start off with this right here. This is a really interesting collection right here. These are the Silent Classics Ultimate Collection. This has some really good cult classics, or basically really well-known, wide-release classics that everybody knows from the silent era, like Metropolis, the original Wizard of Oz, Phantom of the Opera, Hunchback of Notre Dame, a few Robin Hood movies, Nosferatu and all that stuff, which actually is 100 years old already, would you believe, and lots of other different things. I guess I should mention some of them. Basically like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, Phantom of the Opera, Oliver Twist, few Robin Hood movies, The Iron Mask, and then some other ones that maybe may not have heard of before, but they're on there just for convenience sake. And then over here we have a Universal Classic Monsters collection. This is a really cool collection that I'm happy to have because it has like a ton of the classic Universal monster movies. So it has basically, there's lots of the movies that are like, you know, there's copied like onto here, like some that are similar in there, like there's like a Dracula and Frankenstein movie that are in the same thing, and then, you know, also part of like different things. And it makes sense when you actually see it on there, but it's like over like, I believe, let's see. No, 30. Okay, there's exactly 30 films in there. And then there's like a nice little booklet in there basically telling about the history and all that. So now, of course, moving on from classic horror, we're moving on more to the slasher era of horror. I might as well talk about these real quick. So here we have the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the 2-disc Ultimate Editions, and a nice steel book with 2 discs in there. It's a very interesting low budget of a film. It feels more like kind of like a documentary, of course, and it's pretty good for what it was. It was definitely one of the weirdest films I've ever seen, but for what it is, it's a pretty scary film and pretty decent. But I think that, in my own opinion, that Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 is actually a lot more entertaining and, in my opinion, a bit better than the first one. It's a bit more of a horror comedy, kind of, in some places, but it's still pretty good, I think. And then for some dumb reason, I don't know why, I have a bunch of the other ones, like Leatherface, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, The Next Generation, and then the remake, and then a prequel to the remake, and then Texas Chainsaw, also known as Texas Chainsaw 3D, and then Leatherface, which is like another prequel. I'm not really the biggest Texas Chainsaw Massacre fan. I only got these because I've never seen any of the movies, and I just wanted to see what it was about. Not my thing, really. I just like the first two movies, and that's it. I don't really plan on getting any others or seeing any more, really. Sadly, that's just not my thing. So next we have the Halloween collection on Blu-ray, and this is only of the first 10 films that came out. This was before like any of the new ones came out, but it's a really decent enough collection. I gotta say, it's pretty good, very ambitious. This has like, you know, basically originally with the Halloween series, they were owned by like so many different like production companies that it's like, you know, you had no choice originally to buy them separately on DVD, but now thanks to Shout/Scream Factory, you have that ability on here to basically watch all of them in one whole collection. Obviously it has like Halloween 1 through 5 on here, and then it has what I like to call the other Halloween movies, where it has Halloween, The Curse of Michael Myers, which I believe this is the theatrical cut, rather than producer's cut, which is not on here, and I don't really care because I hate that movie. Then there's Halloween H20, Halloween Resurrection, and then the 2 Rob Zombie Halloween movies. So this is a decent enough Halloween collection. I'm just more of a fan of like the first 3, really, and the rest of them I could like take them or leave them. Same with Rob Zombies. I think the first one's okay, second one. But since we're in that territory anyway, here we have the 2018 Halloween sequel. That's a sequel to the first Halloween movie. That's on DVD and Blu-ray, and it's a really good sequel. Really loved it in the theaters. However, my opinion does not go the same for Halloween Kills. This was another movie I saw in the theaters too. Had mixed feelings on it. But it even, with the extended cut right here, it included an alternate ending. I think that this alternate ending is actually a lot better than the one I saw in theaters, which made me feel disappointed. It gave me more high expectations for Halloween Ends that's coming up by the end of the year, hopefully. But it just like kind of disappointed me, really. There was just some parts that were really boring, some parts I didn't like. It just could have been better, really. But at least for the extended cut, at least the alternate ending did make it a bit better. So anyway, moving on from that, here we're moving on to Friday the 13th. This right here is the 8-movie collection. Of course, this is the Paramount distribution, one of the first 8 films, of course. I just don't have the money or even the time or patience to get all 12 of the movies in like a big Blu-ray box set. It's just, 1, it takes up too much room, and 2, they're expensive as heck. Because like there was like one that's all on Blu-ray that's like has so much cool stuff on it, but too expensive and out of print. And as for the other one, it looks cool, but it's just like too spread out. Like, gives like not enough room for anything else. So I just prefer it this way, where it's all on DVD, and I even have like the hockey mask Jason 3D glasses that are included that I put in there myself for Part 3 3D. And then of course we have the 2 film collections of Jason Goes to Hell, The Final Friday, and Jason X. Hate Jason Goes to Hell, but I like Jason X. It's a fun movie. However, this was another one of those where it's not in one disc like it normally is. This is one I made custom where I put the discs in myself because Jason Goes to Hell has like an unrated cut that isn't available anywhere else. It's only available on a regular DVD for some weird reason. And then of course Jason X. And then, of course, without forgetting Freddy vs. Jason, it's included in this set of the Nightmare on Elm Street 8 film collection. This thankfully does not include the reboot of Nightmare on Elm Street. It just has all 7 of the films that go from like Nightmare on Elm Street 1 through 5, The Final Nightmare, and then Wes Craven's New Nightmare, which is pretty good, and then of course Freddy vs. Jason. It's a really good collection. And finally, of course, to end the Friday the 13th series, we have the remake, the Killer Cut, and I thought this one was okay. Not great, but it was okay. And then of course we have the Chucky collection right here, which I think I grew up watching Chucky, and I think he was pretty good. But later down the line, I feel like it kind of went downhill for me. I watched the new TV show. Not my thing, sadly. There were a couple things I like, but not really my thing. Sorry. But anyway, and speaking of which, I might as well talk about the Child's Play remake. Obviously, I made a video about it, my own opinion on it, and I'm sorry for not having a thought about it after seeing it, but I think it's okay. It's really not that bad. And then, of course, we have the first 4 Scream movies. I have not seen the 5th Scream movie. I'll just wait for it to be on DVD. I was planning on seeing it in theaters, but I just don't know why I didn't think about seeing it, or why I don't know. My mind just kept changing, and then I guess I just decided I just didn't want to see it. Maybe it was just because, no, I don't want to waste my time. So maybe I'll just wait till I get it on DVD. And then, of course, for some weird reason, I have the Scream TV series. Have not watched it, and heck, I haven't even watched the other 2 seasons of it, sadly, so I don't even know why I have this. And then, of course, we finally get into some things that I really like right here. So, at the top of the shelf right here, we have the Evil Dead Book of the Dead Limited Edition. Basically, it's the first Evil Dead movie on DVD, but it's a book. It has like so much awesome stuff, and I absolutely love this. There's like artwork and all this stuff, and a couple little booklets I added in there, and then of course the DVD in there. It's really amazing, really well detailed, and I will do the best I can to try and keep this preserved as much as I can. And I suppose, since I'm up here, I might as well show it off. I have them on some book stands right here, so it looks really cool. There's even like a little skull right between them, so it makes it look really cool. And then, of course, there's the Book of the Dead for Evil Dead 2. Basically the exact same thing, but the thing with this one is that, like, originally, if the battery wasn't dead, you could, like, you know, poke his eye and it would scream. I have not heard it personally, but I think it's pretty cool. But mostly the same thing, and basically it's Evil Dead 2 on DVD. And then, of course, for one of my favorite movies, and basically the first of the Evil Dead series that I've seen, Army of Darkness. Really good film. And then, of course, we have the complete series of Ash vs. Evil Dead. And I have heard that there is, or I think there is going to be a 4th Evil Dead film. I think it's in production, or maybe it's done with production. I don't know. And, of course, there's even an Evil Dead video game coming out, which I really hope to play soon. And I think that Ash vs. Evil Dead was okay. However, the cliffhanger was just... So maybe Evil Dead 4 can preserve that somehow. And then here we have something really cool. The Alien / Predator Total Destruction Collection, where it has all 4 of the Alien films, the first 2 Predator films, and then both of the Alien vs. Predator movies as well. So it's a really cool collection. Pretty much the best I could find that looks pretty decent enough to add to my collection, so not a whole lot else to say. And then, of course, we just get into more of the single movie territory, where it has Predators, which is a pretty good film. And then here we have 2 movies that are basically connected together. They're both prequels to the first Alien, where we have Prometheus, which... and then Alien Covenant. So, yeah, not really my type of thing, really. And then the movie that I saw in theaters right here was The Predator. So sick of movies having "the" in the title. But anyway, this one I thought was just so-so. It had its moments, but it was so-so. And then here we get more into the cult direct-to-DVD series, Puppet Master. Again, this was like another thing that I made customly, where this particular set originally has just 2 discs in its collection, but I decided to order all 5 films with their regular DVDs, so that way I can put all 5 of the regular discs in the high quality that they deserve on DVD, and then the other 4 just on one whole thing, right there. And then, of course, with the other movies by themselves. So we have Puppet Master X, or Axis Rising, and then Puppet Master Axis Termination, which is the end of the Axis trilogy, and then the non-canon crossover, Puppet Master vs. Demonic Toys. And originally I also had Puppet Master The Littlest Reich. Not my thing. Too gory for me. Really, really, no. Anyway, and then we have Blade the Iron Cross, which was basically the main icon of both Full Moon Productions and Puppet Master, because Blade is just, you know, the one everybody thinks about when they think of Puppet Master. So he got his own solo film. It was, eh. And then here we have a classic horror film from Alfred Hitchcock, Psycho. Really, really good film right there. And then right here we have the Exorcist Complete Anthology Collection. This basically has, let's see, I want to say 5 films in this, where it has the original, well, actually it kind of depends really. There's like, I want to say there's actually 6. So with the first one, it has the original classic, like the original cut of it. And then the second one is the one that came out years later called the version you've never seen, which I believe was the one where it's like too gruesome for normal people to originally see back in 1970. Oh boy, what was it? 76? 75? Anyway. And then for The Exorcist 2, Exorcist 3 was pretty okay. It wasn't too bad, really. And then, of course, there's Exorcist the Beginning, which was a prequel, and then Dominion, prequel to The Exorcist, which was another prequel. They're sort of the same films, but not entirely. There's a whole history about it. It's complicated. I'm not going to get into it. Basically, case in point, they're bad. So moving on, now we're going into more familiar territory where it's basically Stephen King movies. So to start off with, we have Carrie, Misery, and even though it's not Stephen King, it's still horror, Silence of the Lambs. Carrie's pretty decent. Misery was pretty good, and Silence of the Lambs was surprisingly really good when I first saw it. It's just that cannibalism in horror movies isn't my thing, but after watching this, it was pretty good. And then we have some Stanley Kubrick movies, of course, where we have A Clockwork Orange, which was one of the most bizarre and weird movies I've ever seen in my life. And then we have 2001: A Space Odyssey. You want to talk weird? This is also weird. And then, of course, The Shining, which is a really good classic horror movie. And Full Metal Jacket, which is a pretty decent enough war movie, of course. And then, of course, the sequel to The Shining was Dr. Sleep. I remember seeing this in theaters, and I really liked it. It was pretty good. And then, of course, the not really horror movie, but still Stephen King, Stand By Me. Really good movie. This is sort of like in between the area of like Goonies and The Sandlot, but just a bit more adult, I guess you would say. But it's still a really good movie. And then, of course, we have Creepshow, which is a really interesting type of movie. So if you've not seen it, I recommend you check this out. And then, of course, we have Stephen King's It, the original, of course, that was made on TV, which was basically a two-parter. The one thing I should note for anyone that is not familiar with DVDs, or even like this DVD in particular, is that there's a little thing right here, I mentioned this in the video before, where right there it says the other side goes to the second part. Because like in the middle of watching this, we were confused because it just ended. It didn't say anything like, please turn over for part 2 or anything like that. You had to literally look at it and go like, oh, reverse side is the rest of the second part. Either that or you could just put 2 discs in there, or do it like of how other DVDs have done it, have just, you know, it's like extended over like, you know, 4 or 3 hours. DVDs can do that. Just put the special features on the other side. It's easy enough that way. Lord of the Rings has like, you know, the full 4-hour movie on DVDs. Not a problem with that. They just have a second disc for bonus features or whatever. So, anyway, moving on from that. Here we have another cult classic right here that many people seem to like over the years. Killer Clowns from Outer Space. This is a pretty interesting, more of a comedy-ish really, but it's more like a sci-fi horror comedy. It's really bizarre, so I recommend you watch this if you haven't already. And then here we have Sleepaway Camp on DVD and Blu-ray. This is another one of those cult horror movies that I found very interesting. Again, this was like another one of those like type of Friday the 13th kind of rip-offs, but interestingly enough, it had a really good twist at it. Very dark and very disturbing, really, but pretty good if you really want to scare the hell out of some people. And then here we have another one that's like sort of in the lines of like Stand By Me and Goonies and all that stuff, but horror. The Monster Squad. This is basically like, you know, a bunch of kids that make their own monster group and hunt down the classic Universal horror monsters like Frankenstein's monster, Dracula and the Wolfman, the Mummy, and even the Gill Man, who was from the Creature from the Black Lagoon, which is pretty cool. So it's a pretty good movie. I highly recommend Monster Squad. And then here we have Fright Night. This is a really, really good movie. Really good cast, really good story. It's great. Absolutely phenomenal. And speaking of which, we have The Lost Boys. Really good movie, really good classic. I really wish that they didn't make any sequels or made a remake out of it. Anyway, moving on from that, here we have An American Werewolf in London. This was one that I liked, I think recently, a few months ago, and it's a really good movie. It's more of a horror with a bit of comedy, but it's pretty good for what it is. And then here we have a double feature of Village of the Damned and Children of the Damned. I have not really sat and watched them all the way through. I really need to, because I saw basically John Carpenter's remake, which I'll get to in a second. So here we have a John Carpenter Master of Fear 4 movie collection right here. So here we have John Carpenter's The Thing, which was, I believe, his own remake on Howard Hawks' The Thing from Another World. The Thing is so good. Really good horror movie. And then, of course, there's Prince of Darkness, which has Alice Cooper in it, would you believe? And it was not really too good. And then there's They Live, which is a really good movie. And then John Carpenter's remake of Village of the Damned. Sat through that. And I don't know why I own this, but here is the prequel to John Carpenter's version of The Thing. Meh. And then here we have another John Carpenter movie that I seem to like recently, was The Fog. It has a really interesting cast in it, and it's pretty decent. Not too bad, really. And even though these aren't really horror, they're still part of John Carpenter's legacy. Here we have Escape from New York, which has Kurt Russell in it. Really good film. But of course, there was a sequel that wasn't really too good, but Escape from L.A. Now, when you have one, why not have the other? And then we have one of my most favorite movies that I grew up watching as a kid, Big Trouble in Little China. It has the slipcover, and then it just has this. Really prefer this. But it's a really good action film. It has some really good action scenes with lots of memorable moments in it. Some good lines from it. Really love it. Love the movie to death. And here we have a double feature of House and House 2. I've seen the first House. This was directed by Sean Cunningham, the same guy who directed the first Friday the 13th movie. And I have not seen House 2 yet, but maybe sometime soon I will. And here we have Ghostbusters 1 and 2. This was one that I found at Dollar General, and the one thing that kind of made me want this was because it has this nice little booklet that has like a whole bunch of like behind-the-scenes goodies and all that stuff, so it's really cool. Not a whole lot else to say about it, but Ghostbusters 2, for its bonus feature, includes, I think, a couple episodes of the real Ghostbusters, which was the animated series. And since we're on the topic of that, I, of course, also got Ghostbusters Afterlife. A really good film. I just fell in love with this when we saw this in theaters. It was so good. And, of course, we have Elvira, Mistress of the Darkness. I'm aware that there's another movie, which I believe is called Elvira's Haunted Hills, but from what I saw, it was a bit pricey. Don't know why, but anyway. Next we have more of a sci-fi thriller mystery, I think. I don't know, it's kind of hard to categorize this, but it's somewhere in there. I don't know if it's exactly horror, but anyway. Donnie Darko. This was one that my friends showed me when I was up in college, I think my second year, and I didn't know what to say about it. It was really good, but at the same time, it's like kind of a mind screw, you know what I mean? It's really, really bizarre, but I do recommend watching it, though. And then if you thought Halloween from John Carpenter was an interesting movie to watch around Halloween, Trick or Treat is definitely one of those movies that gives you a really good twist. Like, it's an interesting anthology where I believe this was also based on comic books as well. But basically, it's a really interesting Halloween-y movie. I do recommend this, and I believe that this was also the same guy who directed the legendary Godzilla movies as well. And then here we have a interesting horror comedy called Tucker and Dale vs. Evil. This, of course, has Alan Tudyk in it, who you might know from Resident Alien or Firefly. And this is a really hilarious and just brutal horror comedy, so I do recommend watching this when you get the chance. And this was another bootleg that I felt like I shouldn't have gotten, but at the time I liked it. The first Babysitter movie. Not really going to say anything else about it. It was just only on Netflix, so I didn't really have any other option to watch it. But oh well. And then here we have the two-movie collection of A Quiet Place and A Quiet Place 2. Absolutely love the first Quiet Place. Second one I think was alright, but I really, really love the first one. It was just like amazing. This is definitely something that can change the horror movie genre a lot. And then next we have more of a recent movie with Nicolas Cage. This is more of a horror action movie, and it's not often that you see movies that are horror and action. But anyway, Willy's Wonderland. Obviously this is like a kind of a take on Five Nights at Freddy's, but just given, you know, Nicolas Cage with a character that doesn't say anything and him beating the crap out of animatronic, you know, possessed animatronics. So it's pretty good. It's just mind-numbing entertainment for a good hour and a half. And then, of course, we have something to begin an interesting series, Attack of the Killer Tomatoes. This is another one of those like cult movies that people seem to enjoy. This is one of those movies that basically spoofed and parodied off of you know, some of those like B horror movies in itself. And the interesting thing about this one is that it includes this really cool and big poster that comes with it. Maybe sometime in the near future I'll be able to frame it, but at the moment it looks really cool. To continue the Killer Tomato legacy, which I wish they still would make some sort of release of the entire series from Fox Kids, the animated series of Attack of the Killer Tomatoes on DVD. But anyway, here we have the sequel, Return of the Killer Tomatoes, which I think was a lot better than the first one. The first one was kind of ripe. Ha. And then here we have a interesting, rare, and I guess expensive double feature of Killer Tomatoes Strike Back and Killer Tomatoes Eat France. I have not really seen these yet. And then here we have the original 1960 Little Shop of Horrors that features Jack Nicholson. And then, of course, we have the more familiar musical comedy of Little Shop of Horrors. This is the original right here. And then, of course, I have the director's cut, which has a completely different ending to this. Really dark and morbid, but why not? And then now moving on to more Steven Spielberg movies, and then moving further into Tim Burton movies. Here we have the original Jaws right here. And then the Jaws 3 movie collection. And I have you note that this does not have the first Jaws movie. This has Jaws 2, Jaws 3, and Jaws the Revenge. So I think the only reason why they had these 3 movies in its own collection is because I think that more people would just care more about the first movie rather than the others, so I don't know. And I think the same kind of goes for these, where we have the original Poltergeist movie, which was pretty creepy, and then Poltergeist 2 and 3. I have not seen these yet. Maybe sometime I will. I really feel like I should, but anyway. So now we're moving into more of the Tim Burton type of things. Again, not all of these are like horror exactly, but you know, they're sort of in there. This isn't exactly Tim Burton, but it'll connect with another one that comes next in the collection, so hang in there. Here we have Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. Of course, I don't know why this is in the horror-ish collection, but you know, it's there. But anyway, basically, this is a really good movie that I grew up with as a kid. Love it to this day, still do. It's really great. And then, of course, we have a film favorite of Tim Burton movies, where it has the remake, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, Corpse Bride, Pee-wee's Big Adventure, which I loved and grew up as a kid. And the same thing goes for Beetlejuice. Really love Beetlejuice. And then, of course, there was another movie right here of Pee-wee's called Big Top Pee-wee. Not that good, sadly. And then, of course, we have Edward Scissorhands, which I think was a pretty good enough movie. Not that bad. And, of course, moving on to more Tim Burton movies, here we have The Nightmare Before Christmas. I think I've only seen this movie a couple of times. Sadly, I watched this in Spanish class. Only in Spanish, sadly, but whatever. I think this is pretty good for what it is. Not that long of a movie, I don't think, either. I think it's like under an hour, 77 minutes about, yeah. And then here we have another interesting movie right here, Mars Attacks. And if you're not exactly familiar with it, it's basically based on the Card series by Topps. So it's a pretty interesting enough movie. It has a really interesting enough cast, and it's a pretty interesting sci-fi comedy with a bit of horror into it. It'd be really cool if there existed a dinosaurs attack movie, but I feel like it would be extremely gory. But anyway. And next to end the Tim Burton legacy here, well, sort of. Anyway, here we have Frankenweenie. I remember seeing it, I think, only just once, and kind of had mixed feelings on it. Again, it's been a while since I've seen it, but kind of iffy for me. And then here we have the Addams Family collection. Really like the first Addams Family, and Addams Family Values is also pretty good. Not too bad, honestly. Of course, maybe sometime in the near future I might get the entire series on DVD. I don't know. Again, not exactly planning on it. And we're almost to the end, so don't hang in there. And here we have the Casper 25th Anniversary Edition DVD. It even includes like a bonus disc which has a few of the old-timey Casper cartoons that they had like back in the olden days. As for the movie itself, it's okay. Has its moments, but it's just okay. I think it's just one of those like hour-and-a-half films to entertain your kids for Halloween or something like that. And then, of course, we have the 2 live-action Scooby-Doo movies, 1 and 2. Not a whole lot else to say about it. I did grow up watching the first one. As for the second one, bleh. And now we're getting into more full moon territory right here. Here we have Bad Channels. Now the only reason why I got this is just because it teases a movie that comes later, and I'll show that in a little bit. The only thing that kind of stands out for me is that the music is by Blue Oyster Cult. Interesting, right? And finally, we're to the bottom of the shelf, and hopefully to the end of this video. So here we have Doll Man right here, which is basically a cop or detective, I can't remember exactly, who is basically the size of a doll. And then here we have a collection right here that I kind of customly made right here, where it just originally includes 2 discs, but includes 6 right here. So here we have like 2 Demonic Toys movies right here, and then Doll Man versus Demonic Toys, which is a crossover. So that explains why I got those other 2 movies. And then here we have the Ginger Dead Man movies. The Ginger Dead Man is definitely one of the most ridiculous slasher villains ever created. Love the first one. Well, I like the first one. The other 2 are crap. And then it has like the other movies of like Killjoy 1 through 3. I don't really care for that, but for some reason I still have it. And then of course the only reason why I have these ones is because it's sort of part of the Ginger Dead Man legacy. Is the this is so stupid, I don't even know why I bought these. The Evil Bong movies. There's like 1 and 2, and then 3, and then technically the 4th movie, which has the crossover of Ginger Dead Man versus Evil Bong. Terrible. And then of course there's the other ones like Evil Bong 420, ho ho, and then the Evil Bong High Five, ho ho, and then Evil Bong 666, ho ho, and then Evil Bong 777, ho. And even though I'm not a huge fan of this series either, I only got this just for the first film, and because the first film is pretty good, the Saw collection. Again, only like the first film because of how interesting and low budget it was, but as for the rest of them, not that much of a gore fanatic. And finally to end this off, we have the Ryan Reynolds movie Buried. This is definitely a very intense thriller for me, really. This is a really different movie from anything else, really, but I found it pretty interesting in my eyes, really. So that pretty much shows everything that I got for my entire movie collection. Maybe I'll make another separate video just showing off all the TV shows that I got on my other side. So that's basically it. What are some things that you feel like that I should add in my collection, or what's something that you got? So just let me know, and hopefully you enjoyed this video. Again, this is more for the people who enjoy collecting this type of stuff, really. But again, if you enjoy this, please let me know, and if you want to see more, if you want to see my TV collection, if you want me to make a video on my whole TV collection, let me know, and hopefully you enjoyed this. Be sure to subscribe and stay for more, and hopefully I'll be able to try and do some more fun stuff like this in the near future. So, thanks for watching.